And then you see the stuff that's kind of in between, you know, longer, softer, coarser, whatever.
Bluer,
bluer, greener.
yeah, because you see a lot of bluer.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And
but this
some of the
is
very
such a
special.
nice one though.
Yeah, so obviously, you know, I got it just because of the movement
Well,
and
yeah.
everything, right? And then I'm looking at this tree again, you know, like like after, I'm still like I was telling you, right? Like I still do this beginner's kind of mistake, you know, carry it because I like the fullness of the tree, right?
Yeah.
Like I can hardly ever bring myself just to cut something off that the tree came with. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah.
this is the hard decision for me to make, right? I haven't, I guess, done enough of this and that. So anyway, I kind of liked it like that, and then all of a sudden I started looking at this, and you know, like this part started bothering me, right? Because it has almost no taper, right? You know,
Yep.
like there's this, you know, the going to the top, like. You know, like
Straight,
it's
obviously,
yeah,
yeah.
it's straight and everything, right? And you know what made me think about it, like our conversation about
Yep.
you know, shortening one of your trees,
one of
right?
mine,
That
yeah.
I thought that, you know, like it would, again, you know, you get the fresh look. And the first thing that kind of jumps at you is, oh shit, you know, this tree look would be way better if it were just one, you know, like one step lower in that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then, you know, remember my comment, right? I said, you
Yep.
know, it's easy to say about somebody else's trees, right? And I think I have one like that at home as well.
I
right?
remember. I remember.
Right? I look at this one, right? And I was thinking that, you know, that at least here, and I'm thinking, you know what, like this whole bunch,
Yeah.
you know, should actually go, right?
Yeah.
And I've got
Oh,
a really
yeah.
good viable branch here that is
Yeah.
pointing forward. I can easily regrow, you know, reshape
Yep.
the top out of it, the apex, because it's spruce, right? Like you can literally, you can tie knots out of these branches and that, right?
I don't know,
You know, so-
it'll put tons
Yeah,
of buds
yeah.
there too.
yeah.
And, yeah.
And then, you know, started looking at my branches, right? And obviously, so that, you know, once the top is gone, you know, like this is the branch that was bothering me, right? Like it's kind of nice branch, well ramified, you know, like well shaped and that,
Yeah.
except it's on an borderline on an inside of the curve.
Yeah.
Number one, number two. I think it is again borderline bar branch, right? Like it is just a tad higher than this one,
Yeah.
but then this one here on the right hand side, it's in a perfect location, right? Like it's exactly where you want it to be on the outside of the curve and that, right?
Yeah.
And if you take a closer look, you can actually see a little bit of the swelling here versus that, like a little bit of the, you know, inverse taper. So I'm thinking that this one should go, and the one from the top, you know,
Yeah.
well, even though it's kind of growing in the back, but
Yeah.
it's kind of whipped around from the
Yeah.
back. No, who cares, right?
Yeah,
It,
it
looks,
looks like
like it's here,
Yeah, it's
right?
good.
You know,
Yeah.
so I think that's what's gonna happen, right?
Yep.
And then, you know, and then something from the top will fill in here and that, right? Obviously, that has to go. Again, I kept it just as a sort of like a secondary option, just in case, you know, I wouldn't be able to do anything with other branches, but I can see that there's no problem because again, I've got the branch right here and around the back. I've got this one here, so
Yeah.
I think that can go. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna cut it right now.
You're gonna cut it right now.
Oh my god, it just bothers me. Here comes every bonsai's worst enemy, the
Oh, the
ratchet anvil pruner, right? Like
That's
this
right.
baby will do the damage in no time, right? So there's gonna be no, just like that,
oh yeah.
right away,
It
right?
already looks way better.
Yeah.
Just the space. Oh yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
this branch
Come down into there.
come
a bit.
down in there a bit, right? You know, that there, you know, unfortunately this one is kind of thick, but then again, we'll see, right? Because I might get rid of that, you know. I might
'cause it's
just
so thick.
replace it,
Yeah.
replace it with the
Yeah.
thin one, and you know. And again, you know, I read somewhere, Chris, I don't know if I ever mentioned it to you. You know how you read a lot about, you know, bonsai and all that, right? Somebody said somewhere that all you need for the tree's design is 7 branches.
This is like as a rule of thumb.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Anything more than that makes it like busy, cluttered,
Yeah.
and everything.
Yeah, I
right, you
can't
know?
pick it up
So I
properly.
started counting. It's like
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Right, and you're like, one's
Just
gotta
like
go.
that, you
Yeah,
know,
you're
that's
like,
it,
one's
right?
gotta
So,
go.
Yeah. So this one.
And how long have you had this tree?
This one I think it's been, I don't know, 3 or 4 years.
3 or 4
something like
years.
that.
Okay, well, it's wow, coming along.
So
great.
anyway, a lot of them, you know, like these trees, they look like that with one-sided roots because they grow like that in the mountains, right? So
Right.
all the roots are kind of like uphill,
Yep.
Nothing grows downhill, right? So they kind of grow like that, sort of,
Yeah.
right? So I already shortened the box, but the initial grow box that this tree was in
Right.
was actually out to here, right?
Okay.
So I had just this few, like one long kind of how we call it, just kind of strand of roots, and that was that,
Yeah.
right? So, but it did well. It took well. So I think that after a year, I kind of cleaned it up a little bit and literally just cut off the end of the roots, made them shorter and that, right? So
Yep.
I guess I mean, it's not bad, right? Because if it ever goes into the nice spot and that, right? I had
Oh,
a
yeah.
little rock here and that, right? So it
Yeah.
kind of like,
Yeah.
it looked pretty good, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And
So anyway.
what kind of soil? Like, what do you got in there? Or
This
what are you
is-
growing it in?
This is just again eclectic mix. There's some a little bit of pumice in there,
Yeah.
right? I've got some turfus, of course,
Yeah.
which is not the greatest, but
Yeah, I
there's a
don't
little
like
bit
it.
of lava rock,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
it's
looks
just
like some organic in there too of some
yeah,
sort.
yeah,
some-
just a little bit, yeah, a
Yeah,
little bit, yeah. I had a
some of
little
the
bit of
native
organic
maybe.
stuff, and there was also a little bit of the was the white stuff, the perlite,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's it, right? So.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, most of the like for the newly collected trees and that, like most of my mixes are the large, like a coarse pumice based and that, right?
Okay.
This is apparently the best, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
that's
it-
what I hear.
it's-
You gotta keep on the watering.
Keep
right?
on, yeah,
Keep
exactly.
on the
It is
watering.
porous and that, right? So it just does all those nooks and crannies and that, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Anyway.
yeah.
So yeah, it looks better, doesn't it?
Oh, it looks better.
Right?
I mean,
Yeah,
already it looks way better.
yeah.
And I see
Like I said,
I see what you mean about making it shorter.
Yeah,
Right,
with this,
like-
I think it's I'm gonna do it next. I'm gonna do it in the spring.
Yeah.
I'll,
Yeah.
I'll repot and that, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I did work on it. I wired it and that, right? I did
Yeah.
all this work a little bit late in the season, but it doesn't seem to be
No, this is beautiful though.
nice,
all
eh?
those,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
branch,
yeah. I like
it's
the
just-
flow of it, right?
yeah.
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 And this is so what I found out, right? And again, that's kind of like my kind of general advice on wiring or something like that, right? Because it seems to be a little bit of a daunting task at first when you see all this, like especially in the spruce, right? That grows those branchlets, like you've got your bifurcation in that, and all of a sudden there's like one of those things just popping up right on the top, right?
Yep.
And then the next thing happens and the same thing, right? So it kind of it's difficult. So what I've been telling people, right, is just just lay it out flat.
Yeah.
Like seriously, don't even think about just lay it out flat first, right?
Yeah.
And then see what you got, right?
See what grows and see. Yeah.
And then what I like doing is give it obviously like a nice bend down, right?
Yeah.
And then just kind of literally flatten her out,
Yep.
because that's the natural tendency, right, for the
Yeah.
branches to kind of then
Come up at the
start
end a
climbing
bit.
right back up
Yeah.
at the end, right? In search of the sun, right? So, and it seems to be working, right? Because like you say, right? Like this is really nice branch,
like
right?
that branch, yeah.
And it's without even me trying, right? And you
Yeah.
give it a little bit of a right,
Yeah.
left, right, at the divisions, and that's that, right? So
Oh, yeah.
you continue up like that, to the top of the tree, within reason, right? Because it's obviously collected tree, so we have no control over it, right?
Yeah.
But keep it uniform and that, right? You're gonna end up with a nice tree. Let's take a look at this.
Sure.
Because now that's the completely different different animal right here, right?
Yeah.
So there's this spot there that I found a couple of trees looking like that. They just those spruces grow like this, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if
Oh yeah. So this is you're talking really coarse.
yeah, this is
really coarse pumice. Yeah, yeah.
And this is what
Wow. Okay.
this is what they say,
Yeah.
that and
Fine, some sort of
mix it with the fresh living sphagnum moss.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
Yeah.
and apparently that pretty much anybody who comes with the very very little roots and that, right, will pull through. And that,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so this tree it's kind of like the branches are long and that, right, drooping and kind of like it like that, right? But this is what you're gonna this is what comes as close to the literati tree as as it can be, right?
And how long
No.
have you had this tree, would you say?
Probably about like 3 years in that, right?
Yeah.
Now the way it grew, like the whole back is pretty much dead, eh?
Yeah.
This is how it was actually. See, there's those natural kind of. I never touched them yet, and I
Yeah.
never did anything about them because it kind of, again, in those gins, those
Yeah.
dead branches are kind of in keeping with the rest of the tree, right? But that's
Exactly.
basically how it grew, right?
Yeah.
So I just brought this because. It's just a conversational kind of item, right?
Yeah.
And what's gonna happen with it? Probably just making like an umbrella shape,
Yeah.
tree out of it. That
Yeah.
move some out of the way to
See
sort
the,
of
see the
right,
trunk a little more, and yeah.
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 I've got a couple of branches actually. This one survived. Like thank God. I've got quite a bit of a new growth here and that, right? So I'll be able to replace this.
Something
this,
in the
this-
back a bit. and-
Yeah, exactly, right. And same here, right?
Yeah.
There's a really good one here. So yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's so hard to know what to do with these when there's no lower branches, and then it's like you said, either like a full umbrella,
Right. Yeah.
and or you see junipers done like that. They'll bring the branches almost straight down and then out, and then kind of hide it and layer it.
Yeah, exactly, and kind of layer it like.
Yeah,
kind of like
layer
that,
it,
right?
layer it all out, or
Yeah.
or whether you make it more literati and have it
Yeah,
really
yeah.
sparse, right? Like just take off a whole bunch and
Yeah.
leave a little top and
Yeah.
one drop branch or something, right?
Not a big fan of literati
Yeah.
trees. I'm not a big fan of windswept trees.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like.
Well, and you've been around, seeing a lot of different trees for a lot of years and stuff. Who impresses you? Who were some trees that impresses you? I mean, you talked about Bill Van Vanis.
We
and-
went to see Dan Robinson a couple years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
It just looks like some of those trees were just amazing, just breathtaking. It was drooling over those, some
Right.
of those short pines that he's got and that, right? It's just, like to me, it would be just the best bonsai I've ever seen in that.
wow, yeah,
And the guy's not even trying.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Just
right,
like that, yeah. So that was very, very impressive in that, right? It's like he's like this very, very natural style. Like those trees, they just look natural, right? Like
Yeah.
then they don't look contrived, right? Like
Yeah.
they don't look designed,
Yeah.
there's just something about them, right?
yeah.
Amazing.
Well, and it probably captures some of that, Western American, or Canadian,
that's,
ruggedness that you don't.
That's where the guy is from, and that like he's
Yeah.
actually, he's from there. Like he's in Bremerton, Washington State, and that, right? I think he comes from there, but he kind of did a whole bunch of work out throughout the Western states and that, right? But,
Yeah.
the Pacific Northwest and that, right? And
Yeah.
especially, that this is, like I like the area of the country, of the continent most, and that, right?
Yeah.
Like we went through Portland and that, Oregon coast,
Yeah.
and that, oh my God, like, oh, this is just perfect, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so
Yeah.
lush and that, right?
Yeah.
And it's not a surprise that maybe it's not a coincidence that Ray and Neil is there, right?
Yeah.
His nursery is just outside of Portland.
Yeah.
Michael Hagedorn is in Portland,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
obviously Mr. Robinson is not just around the corner.
Yeah.
Beautiful trees I saw went in Tacoma, right, in the warehouse
okay.
in Bonsai Museum and that.
Oh,
right?
wow,
And,
okay.
Again, amazing collection there and that, well
Yeah.
kept, and they have
Well, and some historical trees probably in some of those
yeah, absolutely.
museums,
They have
right?
Nick Lentz tree, right?
Yeah.
They have the David de Groot, right? The guy who
Yeah.
wrote the Principles of Bonsai book and that, right?
Yeah.
David de Groot's trees are there. Yeah.
Yeah, some historical pieces in that way, right? I mean, when you think of some of the...
Yeah. Nick Lentz is impressive as well, right? So I have
Yeah.
his book about collecting that, like the stuff that he did with larches. He's just like a kind of forward-thinking pioneer, a little bit of a maverick that
Right.
way, right? Because,
Yeah.
again, like you see Penelope, right?
Yeah.
Who would ever have an idea about, this kind of garden statue lady laying there and kind of wrapping, the larch through her, and he had a few of the crazy ideas, like the forest with the tank, you know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
okay.
burnt out and that, right? Creating, scenes like that. So,
You're right.
but in terms of, what he did with those trees, amazing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, kind of that artist level almost, right?
Oh,
When
it's
it reaches a
exactly. Not
different...
like me. I'm just, like myself, at the best, if I ever become, like, I would probably be like just a decent craftsman, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Art? Are you kidding me? Like it's like seven levels above me and that, right?
Oh, sure.
You gotta have a little bit of a
You gotta spend a lot of time with it too, right?
a lot
You
of
gotta-
time, yeah.
and
It's
mindset,
Chris,
I guess, too.
It has to be your life, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not a coincidence, Yeah, I like and you say whose trees are impressive. Obviously, like Ryan Neal, the what's his name, the Bjorn Holm and that, right? I mean, you look at what they create, right? It's just amazing, right? The skill that these guys have and everything, right? But like I said, the one that really stands out is definitely Dan Robinson and that, right? And the guys like just kind of different, a little bit different.
Yeah.
But
Well,
then,
and the different influences, right? Not the
absolutely.
Japanese sort
I
of,
know,
right?
yes,
Wasn't trained
like
that way,
he's-
and so it's
He
out of the
never
box.
went, He never went to be an apprentice, right? And in one of the leading bonsai nurseries, and that these guys went,
Yeah. Well, and you had
and obviously it shows, skill level and that, right? But in the end, they kind of,
it's a different aesthetic, a different look, right? I mean, obviously, him and Walter Paul had a lot of probably mutual influence off each other, right?
Yeah,
And so,
see Walter Paul, another one, obviously, that goes without saying, and that, right? It's like I see his trees, and lately he's just going like they are getting like more and more haggard, I would say. You know what I mean? Like it just got a little bit of a more naturalistic kind of taken a step further than naturalistic look. And you know what I mean? Like,
interesting.
yeah, it's.
Yeah.
But
Well, and
yeah, 'cause
he documents his trees so well that you get to see the progression of them really well, right?
absolutely.
Which is that progression of the
We
artist.
got
And,
like 100 pictures of one tree
oh, I know. Yeah.
in one session, right? I've got 100 pictures of all my trees all together, right? But he does.
Well,
that,
and it's great though because you don't
Then again,
always think to take pictures of all the progressions, and it's